Hello, Daz Studio enthusiasts. This is Not From This World, and I want to welcome you back to another Daz Studio tutorial. Now, today I want to just talk a little bit about a few more tips that will help your renders and make life easier for you working with Daz Studio. So this is going to be 6 more tips for Daz Studio. For my first tip today, I want to talk about nudge. Now, nudge is a way that was going to help us pose. And let me give you an example of this. Let's say we've got our character and we're going to have our character hold something, which is a pretty common thing, right? And I've shown you several times how we can pose our characters so that they're holding something. I'm going to have her holding this bottle, so I'm just going to click the bottle. We're going to move this over to Milica. So let me zoom in. She's going to be kind of holding this bottle. And this nudge is kind of a neat way to help you pose, because what it's going to do is it's going to allow us to move her in a more precise way. Now, for nudge, what we're going to do is we can make some more precise movements. And so if I click on something like her hand, and then we choose her hand, and I want to bend it, I can go up here to the parameters, and then go to our little gear, go to parameter settings, and under parameter settings, we're going to have this feature called nudge. And what nudge does is it determines how fine-tuning we can move our prop. So it is defaulted to 0.5, but if I decrease this number, let's say to 0.2, it's going to make our movements of the hand more precise. So instead of moving the hand at 0.5, we can get more precise movements of our character. So this is just kind of a simple, easy way to increase the detail of how we can move our character. So each part of our character, when we select it under parameters, we can change this nudge to make it more fine-tuned. Okay, for the second thing I want to show you is the refresh option. So let's imagine that we have added something new into our content library, and we have Daz Studio open. So here I have an example here. I've got this exosuit. So I've got this clothing for Genesis 8 females. I'm going to go ahead and open it. We're going to extract it because it is a file that is zipped up. So once I have this created, I'm going to click on it and I'm going to install this into my library. And yes, I have kind of a huge library where I have different external folders. So I'm just going to highlight everything. This is a clothing, so I'm going to just drag this to my clothing and it's going to load. Okay, so remember, this is called the Vitruvian exosuit. So the Vitruvian exosuit, if I go to that folder, this external Daz clothing folder, if I open it up, we aren't going to find it. So this was a Genesis 8 clothing, and we're not going to find it. It's not going to be in here at all unless we refresh. So if I take this and I go to my external clothing, I can actually go all the way down to Genesis 8, but just to be careful, let's right click on our folder, our clothing folder, and then you just go down to refresh. And when you do that, it will refresh this folder and add in our new prop. So when I go to this now, we will find that Vitruvian exosuit. It's right here. So it wasn't there before. Now we have the Vitruvian exosuit loaded in. So all you have to do when you load something new in that doesn't come from Daz is just right click and hit refresh on that folder, and you will have that without closing Daz. Okay, so for the third tip, I want to talk about creating a default camera. You know, when you first make a scene and you open it up, you're using this perspective view camera, and you look at it and there's no actual camera that is there in the scene. So you have this front, left, right, but these aren't really cameras. And you can create a default camera that'll always open up within your scene. And it's pretty easy. All you have to do is go to Edit, then go down to Preferences. And when you get to Preferences, just click on Scene. And then it says Create a Default Camera. Just click that and hit Apply and Accept. And then you will have a default camera for your scene that's already there. For the fourth tip, I'm going to show you how you can move articles of clothing from one character to another. Now this will work with any of our characters and any clothing. So, you know, I've got Bilyana here, Milika's younger sister, and then Milika. And if we are working in our scene and we need to move clothing from one character to another, or if we want to duplicate, we can do this pretty simple. And I'm going to show you this technique with their shoes. So I'm going to zoom in kind of to their feet here, and I'm going to select Milika, and I'm going to scroll down until I find the shoes she's wearing, which are called hash sandals. And with these hash sandals, I don't want to move the shoes from Milika to Bilyana. I want them to be wearing the same type of shoe. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to Edit, Duplicate Node Hierarchies, and I'm going to make a copy of those sandals. So with the copy of the sandals, next I'm going to select that copy, and I'm going to right click, and I'm just going to go to Fit Hash Sandals 2. I'm going to select that. Then I'm going to change this from Milika to Bilyana and hit Accept. And then those shoes are going to be transferred right to Bilyana. Now they both have shoes. In this case, I want Bilyana's shoes probably not to be red. So then I can go to my Surface tab like we always have done. I can select the shoes, and let's see, the top coat is what we want to change. So I'm going to go to Base on the top coat, change it from red. Looks like she needs some black shoes. And then we will add those shoes to her. So that is a quick and easy way. You can do this with any type of clothing. You can also transfer it over, just don't copy it. So if I want to move, let's say, Milika's bottom over to Bilyana, I'm just going to click on it and just change the fit and fit it to Bilyana, and it'll move from one character to another. All right, tip number 5 is going to be spot rendering. Now, a lot of times I use iRay, NVIDIA iRay, to kind of preview my scene. So, you know, we can click on that and then it will show us what the render is going to look like in iRay. Right, so we can kind of see what it's going to look like. But this takes a little bit of time. See how it has a lot of noise. It's slowly building the scene. We can avoid this by doing some spot rendering. So I'm going to just click out of this, go back to texture shaded. And with spot rendering, all we need to do is go to this camera that's up here in our menu. We click on that camera, and then when you drop down, you'll notice that our cursor is a camera. And what we can do is we can select an area, like this area, and when I select it and then let go, it's going to spot render just that part. This can come in really handy to double check your work to make sure it's what you want. So it's just going to render this box. All right. So you can see that this one area of our picture has been rendered. I've noticed that this is very handy when I'm not sure what something will look like. So for example, if we zoom into Milica, when this is in texture mode, when I'm here in the texture shaded mode, things look kind of funky. It looks like her hair isn't correct. So this is when I use spot render, and I can just spot render this one area just to double check, what does her hair look like? Is it messed up where like half of it's behind her shoulder, which is what we appear, or is it correct? Because remember, the render often looks kind of different from the texture shaded mode. So we can see when this is being rendered that her hair looks good. So now we can say, all right, that looks good. I can get rid of the render, and as soon as I click on it, that spot render goes away. Just make sure that you go back to your selection tool before you keep working, because if you leave it on the camera, whatever you move will just spot render. For our sixth tip, I want to show you how you can check your render while you're rendering. So a lot of times, we set up a scene, maybe you forget to check your render settings, and then you start your render. You don't have to stop the render to go back. So I'm going to set this up, get our girls in position here. Maybe they're getting ready for a party or something at their apartment. And I'm just going to render. So we're going to go to render and then just hit the render button. So we're going to start rendering. And then let's imagine that you think, oh gosh, did I have my render settings the way I wanted? We can check this without stopping the render. All you have to do is go to the left-hand side, and you're going to see right in the middle, you're going to see this box right here. Just click on that box, and it brings up your render menu. So if I hit all, you're going to see that I've got my render menu that is set up for this render. What's really cool about this is, let's say you forgot to set something up, you can change it while we're rendering. So for example, if we want to change the amount of time, let's say, usually I have it raised to the maximum because I don't care about how long it takes for a render. I just want a high quality render. But let's say we want to lower that down. We can lower this down to what we want. Like, let's just say I want about 5,000 seconds of render time. I can just click on that and move this tab, and it's going to change the render and edit our settings. Let's have our maximum sample set at like 5,000 or something, and so I can go in here and change it while we're rendering, and that way I don't have to stop the render and then start it all over again. Now play around with this a little bit, because there are some things that if you change, you can change it, but it'll just start the render over again. So some of these things, you can manipulate and it'll change the existing render. But I do have to say that in some cases, if we move this slider or if we change a selection on some of these other ones, it will restart your render. It'll just automatically do that. Alrighty, so those are 6 more tips that you can use that can help you work with Daz Studio. Now, before I render this and complete the video, we are going to run a simulation because our girls' clothing are not quite correct. And then after I simulate, we're gonna render and then wrap up this video. So I appreciate you watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'd love to hear a comment or two about what you'd like to see and how your Daz Studio experience is going. All right, until next time, have a wonderful day.